First City Focus is supported in part by Duke Energy, powering the lives of its customers and communities. Online at duke-energy.com. Good Samaritan, a regional healthcare center offering a variety of services from primary care to same-day joint replacement surgery and more. Good Samaritan online at gshvin.org. Colonial Assisted Living. Colonial is an assisted living residence, promoting independence and dignity for each resident while providing the necessary assistance for daily living. Colonial Assisted Living, 1622 South Hart Street Road in Vincennes, 812-895-1504. And by donations contributed by Vincennes PBS viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to this special edition of First City Focus. I'm Dave Foster. For Black History Month, we are recognizing African American influence from history to today. And coming up, a conversation with Tom Bartholomew from the Black History Preservation Project of Knox County. And we'll visit Lyles Station in Gibson County, where stories from that rural settlement founded nearly 200 years ago continue to be told. And we'll hear a modern day perspective on the ideals of Frederick Douglass. All of this right now on First City Focus. During Black History Month, the work of preserving local stories takes on added meaning, and the Black History Preservation Project of Knox County has been collecting and sharing those histories in several ways. And one of the driving forces behind it all is Tom Bartholomew, and he joins us now to give us an update on the ongoing project and what's to come here in 2026. Thanks for being with us today, Tom.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thanks for Vincennes PBS for having us and paying attention to the Black history here in Knox County.
So give us an update on where the project is, what's the status, what's happening.
Well, when it's not in the middle of Black History Month, we've always got something going on. Probably right now our two biggest things happening would be involving exploring the Idaho neighborhood here in Vincennes, traditionally black neighborhood, which I'll talk to you about later. But another thing that's going on is the McGrady-Brockman House's Cindy Frederick has secured funding and permission and approval to erect a marker in Green Lawn Cemetery to commemorate the service of 3 black Revolutionary War soldiers.
Really?
And their names are McAnally, Strother, and Knight. And this is probably one of the most significant recognitions of black history in Knox County that I know of. We're really proud to have Cindy on board and doing this work. She's done it in conjunction with the Daughters of the American Revolution, who pay particularly close attention to our Revolutionary War heritage here in Vincennes with the Francis Vigo chapter, and we are, beyond delighted that they have chosen to recognize this black history.
Yeah. Do we know when this is going to happen?
Well, probably sometime later this summer, June, July, August. We're in the process, or she's in the process of securing funding for the marker itself, which, we've reached out to a number of state historical organizations, and they've all showed a marked enthusiasm for the project. So, yeah, it'll be, later in the summer, I would say.
Well, celebrating America 250 and Vincennes 250, I mean, it hits right
It's
at
perfect.
home.
Yeah, it's all, that history's always been there. So, we're kind of glad to have Vincennes 250 to help support this as well.
Yeah. Anything else going on with 250 with the Black History Project?
Always. Last Saturday we had Professor Tyson Sims speaking as part of the second Saturday speaker series at the Knox County Public Library. And Professor Sims spoke about Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, as you probably already know, is an orator, author, and abolitionist, but he was also a newspaper man.
Yeah.
And his newspaper, the North Star, was one vehicle with which he delivered his message of abolition. And his most iconic address probably was "What to the Slave is the 4th of July," that he delivered in 1852 to the Ladies' Anti-Slavery Society of Rochester, New York. And that was 175 years ago. Its relevance today is still significant and of great import. And that's what Professor Sims explored, basically, is how would Frederick Douglass' message fall on today's ears, in the 21st century. Questions you might ask is, have the black community or other marginalized communities gained the liberty that was promised in the Declaration of Independence or even the Constitution of the United States? And we talked about how Frederick Douglass might address what's going on in the country today and how that's playing out in politics today. It was very well intended, really engaging, and we're glad that the Vincennes 250 people were supportive of this, and hopefully it shows up on the America 250 stuff as well.
All right. Let's move on into the discussion about Idaho. We've got some Lincoln P-Tech students involved in this, so tell us what's going on with that, and tell us about the Idaho neighborhood for people who don't know.
All right. Let me start off with P-Tech.
Okay.
The Vincennes Lincoln High School P-Tech class, P-Tech stands for Pathways to Technology, has assisted the Black History Preservation Project in the past. Last year, just about a year ago, we were collecting oral histories from people who live in Idaho. And Idaho would have been what is known as a black neighborhood in Vincennes. It's probably where the greatest percentage of the black community lived. And that neighborhood, the center of it would have been, Seminary Street, Perry Street, maybe between 11th and 14th Streets. Okay. And so what we're going to do with the P-Tech class is research the locations and individuals who lived in the Idaho neighborhood. And it is using this method that we're going to try and paint a picture and draw a bigger picture and get a clearer picture of what Idaho was like back in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And there is a lot of history. It's a vibrant neighborhood and home to businesses, schools, churches, artists, and numerous lodges and other benevolent organizations. One of the lodges that my wife Angie has been researching recently is the Anchor Lodge number 45. And the Anchor Lodge is a Masonic lodge. And although Vincennes is home to the first Masonic lodge in the state of Indiana, there was another one in Idaho for some reason. And that's Anchor Lodge number 45. And the more we research that, find out about the people in that lodge and what they did, the more exciting it becomes. So it was a vibrant neighborhood. And, many of these people and places in Idaho are kind of unknown now and can only be found in the old city directories and newspapers of your local public library, or in our case, the McGrady Brockman House, where we have all the resources to look into that. And we're looking forward to welcoming the P-Tech students in there because they're going to be charged with researching these individuals and these places. And when I say the neighborhood was between 12th and 14th on Seminary and Perry Streets, that would have been the heart of the neighborhood, I think. It went out beyond that. I went to 10th Street, where the African Methodist Episcopal Church was. It went north of Hart Street, where the Freedmen's Bureau Colored School was. So it spread out a little beyond there. Yeah. But the neighborhood itself was vibrant and close-knit. As one resident from last year's oral history project described it, the neighborhood was pure magic.
Really?
And so we're looking forward to that. There's so much there. They're going to, whether they're researching Mamie Long or William Booker, where they're researching the Second Baptist Church or the Elite Club right down the street. There's so much interesting stuff there, and I'm sure they'll be engaged. We're just really happy to have Angela Baldwin bring her P-Tech class in and get some younger folks involved in this.
Yeah, that's great. Believe it or not, we're just about out of time, so just, so just kind of elaborate on why this work continues to be important for Vincennes, not just historically, but you know, for adults and kids alike.
For adults and kids alike, it's really so important to realize that Black history is everybody's history. Black history is Vincennes history. Black history is U.S. history. And if you want a complete picture, you've really got to be ready to look at everything, because it's all interconnected.
Yeah. Has some of this history been hidden for some reason, or it's just forgotten? Just
forgotten. I think, you know, the way history curriculums and historical locations were set up, it just didn't really recognize Black history. Everything was taught in the terms of white people, William Harrison, Henry Harrison, George Rogers Clark. Well, there's Black history associated with both those individuals. Yeah. And to know the rest of the story is to know the whole story. And, you know, it's constantly evolving. And knowing the whole story really makes everyone's life a much richer life to live.
Certainly does. So we appreciate you being here, Tom Bartholomew, the facilitator for the Black History Preservation Project of Knox County. We will continue to follow the work of that project, and be sure and watch for updates on all of our platforms. In Gibson County, Lyles Station near Princeton stands as Indiana's last historic African-American rural settlement, and we take you there now, where work continues to safeguard that history.
We just want to pull them out of that unknown as a parent, when most of them could not do the math. Most of them could not write, could not read nothing but the Bible, and that was from memorizing. This was a great opportunity to give these kids something that they never had.
Last year, we uncovered some truly remarkable victories achieved by African Americans in Indiana. Among them was a case involving the historic community of Lyles Station, a place with a rich history and significance that extends far beyond that single moment. To the north of Lyles Station, a familiar name to our History Ball viewers settled.
Well, when they first started out, Mr. Charles Greer, he came here in 1813, and he established his first farm and went to Vincennes, to the land bank, and bought his first tract of land, which is 120 acres, when he first did that in 14. And he was able, in a year and a half's time later, go back and buy another 40 acres, so that gave him 60 acres. And back in that day and time, if you were a 15 to a 25 acre farmer, you were huge in the eyesight of farming. And this man decided to go back to South Carolina, found a little sweetheart over there, got married, and talked some of the family into coming and helping him on his farm. So there was about 30 families on Mr. Greer's farm that helped maintain that farming activity to establish that African American in this community and settlement here. And then the follow-up of that, he left and went back to Tennessee. He also went back over into North and South Carolina and Virginia, and talked to the African Americans over in that area that this land of the Northwest Territory was a great opportunity for them to come and be able to be large-scale farmers than where they were sitting at in Virginia and South Carolina on a small scale. So there was a lot of movement of the various families. There was 9 families that came here at the very earliest, and they started looking at how they could develop and multiply, and we ended up with 3 Negro colonies here. One to the south of us is Sand Hill. This one was called the Switch Settlement at the very beginning. Well, the Switch Settlement was renamed in 1886 after Joshua Lyles. That was the largest scale farmer that was here, 1,040 acres. Mr. Roundtree came here along with the rest of the movement of the people in that early 40 and 50 time frame, and established a little small community over there with an education. The Roundtree School was there, and a church was there, prosperous farming going on over there. So the colonies that we had here were looking at the leaders of the 3 communities, and they decided, you know, Lyles Station would be the key player to be our central location for the general store and for the industries and the businesses that would be part of prosperity. And they came here with, the leaders did, at the church down here, and made that decision. And that's where we were established as a community of 3 miles in a circle.
Stanley isn't just a historian of Lyles Station, he is part of it. His family has lived in this community for 5 generations and continues to farm here today.
Well, I have been a native of this area for my whole entire lifetime, and I have been so very proud to be connected with the farmer. My grandfather was a farmer, and I'm still a farmer, and I really wanted to have an opportunity to stay in my community and grow this community to be a better for the next generation.
But staying in this community has not always been easy for his family.
Well, when we first came here, it was a very difficult time for this location because this was a wetland, and for the African Americans that settled here, they had flooding conditions that they dealt with on spring, fall, or whenever the large rain scales came up. The 3 rivers would back up out of their banks.
Living in a wetland has always presented challenges for this community, but it wasn't the only obstacle they faced in farming.
So it's very challenging, to have your community flooded once or twice out of the year. But we were deep-rooted. We came here in that early years that our forefathers set you might say, a preference that this was going to be home, this is for everyone, and we would multiply and grow in strength in the future.
They not only had to overcome farming expenses, but also the costs of their children's education. With no government funding for a public school for African American children, the community established a subscription school. Families were required to pay $1.50 per child each month, a hardship for many, as most had between 8 and 12 children.
In the state of Indiana, they're looking forward to collecting a fee for the African Americans that came into the state, and it was called the Black Bond, and we had to pay $500 back that day and time to just be able to live here. And then we had to buy our land at $1.93 to $2 an acre. So it was a real challenge for the African Americans in the early years to be farmers and be able to take that challenge on at the cost just to be able to settle in the various areas in Indiana. So where do you come up with $12 every 30 days to pay that school teacher? And they had to take a lot of their funding out of the farm, eggs, butter, cheese, chickens, and move it through to the Wabash River over to Mount Carmel down on 4th Street and sell the goods over there and bring that dollar back to hand to the teacher for their 30 days of education for their children. The bridge was first, and then it was brought up in their discussion, and I'm sure it was discussed at many times with the school meetings that were held, because it was really a burden for them to pay that large of a sum for each child.
But after James Roundtree won his case to have the bridge rebuilt with metal, the community began to regain hope and confidence.
The school here was in 1865, and the only way that we could possibly get away from subscription school of paying $1 to $1.50 per child to go to school, we had to sign petitions, and that petition was sent by Mr. James Roundtree's son, Mr. William Roundtree, to the governor, and the governor took it to the Senate, and it was discussed at the Senate and ruled up on African Americans paying their taxes on the farmland should be able to send their children to school to get a free education. And that's when it was passed, somewhere in the 70s, I guess, 1872 or something like that.
Years that followed, both the school and the community thrived. By the early 20th century, Lyles Station had nearly 800 residents. However, in 1913, a devastating flood forced many settlers to leave. As the population declined, schools from the 3 smaller communities closed. leading to the creation of a new consolidated school. It opened in 1919 and became integrated in 1922, but by 1958, declining enrollment led to its closure. Over time, the school and much of the community's history began to fade into decay.
Would you have been one of the last generations to go to school here?
Probably so, yeah.
Until Stanley and other dedicated members stepped in to preserve it.
In 1997, there was a group of us of 19 that gathered down at the church to see if we could do something about the old school that set up here for 42 years with nothing being done to it, and put this in the process of making a museum out of it. So with that group of people that looked at the ideal of redoing this building, got together and worked about 4 to 5 years on grants and bylaws and just a variety of what we have today. Was through a lot of hard work from a lot of individuals.
Since its opening, the museum has served as an important educational resource for many schools and remains a thriving hub, educating students and the community every day.
I think it's a wonderful time to make a difference. I guess would be the word I'd like to use, is to make a difference, to understand African Americans are true, loving people just like everyone else, and dedicated to make tomorrow a better place. So I think that's very important for them to come to the museum to understand how the life of here 200 years and how we have put a lot of energy and labor in to make a difference in society.
From the wetlands they farmed to the schools they fought to fund, the story of Lyles Station is one of determination, unity, and belief in a better future. Built by families who refuse to be limited by the barriers placed before them, this community stands as a testament to the power of collective action and generational resilience. Today, Lyles Station is more than a place on a map. It's a living legacy through preservation, education, and remembrance. Its story continues to inspire new generations to understand the past, honor those who came before, and carry their perseverance forward. And for more on Lyles Station, follow our History Vault series on the Vincennes PBS YouTube channel. During Black History Month, a recent local program connected a historic speech to a modern audience at the Knox County Public Library. Vincennes University professor Aaron Tyson Sims discussed how Frederick Douglass's 1852 address can be understood in the 21st century.
I want to thank you for coming out this afternoon. We are here to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States by recognizing one of the premier civil rights leaders in American history and in the African-American community, Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey Douglass. Born in 1818 in Maryland to his enslaved mother, Harriet Bailey, Douglass rose from bondage to become one of the most formidable political and moral voices of the 19th century. Politically, the United States in the early 1850s was governed by compromise in name and capitulation in practice. The compromise of 1850 passed 5 legislative acts that resolved disputes about the expansion of slavery in the West, admitting California as a free state and allowing territories like Utah and New Mexico to decide on their own whether to legalize slavery, and they did. The Fugitive Act of 1850 federalized slave catching and forced citizens in free states to assist in the capture of enslaved people. It criminalized moral dissent. Northern whites who opposed slavery were now legally compelled to enforce it. This shattered the myth that slavery was a Southern problem and exposed the federal government as an active agent of human bondage. For free Black Americans, the law meant that freedom was provisional and revocable at any moment. Now, we don't know what Frederick sounded like, but the descriptions are there. He had a powerful voice, he was a performer, and he used his voice and his performance to drive home his arguments. All right? So we've tried to emulate that in a sense.
Fellow citizens, this day marks 250 years since the bold declaration that these United States are, and of right ought to be, free and independent. It is the anniversary of your political birth, the ring bolt in the chain of your national destiny. Pride and patriotism summon you to rejoice. The banners wave, the bells resound. The language of liberty flows freely from platform and pulpit alike. I am not insensible to the grandeur of this occasion. The men who framed your independence were brave men. They were great enough to give shape to a great age. They seized upon eternal principles and dared to set them before an astonished world. For the good they did, and for the principles they contended for, I unite with you in honoring their memory. But my business, as ever, is with the present. The question before us is not what they declared, but what you have done with the declaration.
This is just an exercise, and it's an exercise to provide space for us to reflect and argue with AI or even argue with ourselves in that sense. So I'm interested in seeing what kinds of questions people have. For Frederick Douglass, what was his greatest source of hope in insurmountable circumstance?
Frederick Douglass consistently found hope in the power of knowledge, education, and human action. He believed that literacy and critical thinking could liberate people both physically and mentally. Even in his darkest moments, he saw the capacity of individuals, whether enslaved or free, to change society through learning and moral action. In essence, he put faith in the agency of people to transform themselves and society.
Hopefully, you have been inspired by this presentation to continue to critically engage with who we are as Americans. In the scheme of things, you know, Frederick Douglass 175 years ago at the 75th anniversary sort of highlighted the fact that America was young at 75 and that we still had promise. And in the scope of nations, particularly China, America still is young. 250 years is not a long time. And again, America is an experiment, much like this presentation. But, it's a delicate experiment, and we won't miss it until it's gone. All right, so thank you for this opportunity.
That program was part of the second Saturday series in the 2026 celebration of Vincennes 250. There's more information on that year-long series through the Vincennes State Historic Sites. We thank you for joining us for this special edition of First City Focus on Black History, and we hope it's informed you and inspired you to keep exploring these stories. I'm Dave Foster, and for all of us at First City Focus and Vincennes PBS, we'll see you next time.
First City Focus is supported in part by Duke Energy, powering the lives of its customers and communities. Online at duke-energy.com. Good Samaritan, a regional healthcare center offering a variety of services from primary care to same-day joint replacement surgery and more. Good Samaritan online at gshvin.org. Colonial Assisted Living. Colonial is an assisted living residence, promoting independence and dignity for each resident while providing the necessary assistance for daily living. Colonial Assisted Living, 1622 South Hart Street Road in Vincennes, 812-895-1504. And by donations contributed by Vincennes PBS viewers like you. Thank you.